So the definition of alpha in the dictionary, so from the solar system, it's Alpha Centauri, star that shines the brightest. Doesn't sound like a meathead, knuckle dragging anything. And then from the animal kingdom is to achieve the highest rank in a dominance hierarchy. And it gives the example of the alpha female in an elephant pack. So that sounds pretty good to me. And so the Awaken Your Alpha is that combination to achieve the highest rank of areas of your life that are important to you and to also shine as bright as you can with your time here. And that's not to put others into your shadow, but to illuminate. So that's really the whole concept. And generally people are like, oh, I don't have a problem with that.
This is an intro. Intro.
Hustle and float chart with your boy, my boy, Matt Wolf and Joe Fier.
Hey.
Good morning.
Hey. Good morning. Good evening.
Good afternoon.
That was the in-between I was missing. You're right.
Yeah.
Which I guess it's afternoon now, huh?
Buenos dias. Buenos tardes.
Hola,
Buenos
mi
noches.
amigo. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes to all the above. And why are we saying that?
I don't know. We're actually recording this at 4 p.m.
That's right. That's true. We've completed our podcast for the day, and now it's intro time. Intro.
Intro.
That's right. This is an intro.
It's been an interesting day because since all the COVID lockdown stuff happened, we've been recording in separate locations.
Yes.
I've been at my house, you've been at your house, our guest was at their house, and so we were all sort of piping in from 3 different places. Today, Joe and I went Chuck the man.
That's what we said.
Chuck the man.
That was word for word it right there.
Yes. No, I think you actually had stuff going on at your house and you're like, I can't record from my house today, so let's record together.
It would have been chaos, and it was just, I would rather be in person. Plus, we've been itching to actually just sit in the same room and it just feels more natural.
Yeah.
I was liking the video with guests, but we did that with Adam, as we'll say, our guest today, and another interview that we did. But I really like, I don't know,
being able to see the person we're talking to.
It's a complete different dynamic. I mean, this is just like behind the curtain or whatever is. Mm-hmm. We've always had a virtual podcast, of course. Some have been in person, like we've had some in person ones but they're rare. But like those in-person ones are completely different than this show. I mean, but then it's completely different when you and I are in the different places.
Yeah, I bet if we were to go back and listen to these like several years from now, I bet you and I would be able to tell like, oh, that one we were in the same room. Oh, that one we were in separate rooms. Oh, that one even our guest was in the same room with us. Like I feel like there's a completely different feel between, I mean, while we're recording, there's obviously a hugely different feel. Like when you and I are in the same room, there's definitely a different dynamic than when you and I are virtually seeing each other through a screen, but we're back to the way we, like doing it the most, where we're in the same location. And it was cool. I feel like it's
good.
There's definitely a better flow, better like body language, back and forth communication as we're going through these interviews.
It's true. No, I dig it. So, yeah, we're together.
Oh my gosh.
We're back in the same place, but we've stayed 6 feet apart.
We have actually stayed pretty distant from each other.
All day long.
We didn't even give a big old man hug, didn't squeeze your butt, none of that.
No nipple grabs.
None of
nothing.
that.
No.
Yeah.
Just a nipple flick though. But I washed my hand immediately after.
And I'm wearing a shirt, so it was...
Of course you were. That's fine.
And then I washed my shirt after it. No, I didn't. I'm still wearing the same shirt.
Your nipples are easy to find, Matt. All right. On to the flick.
Yeah.
All right.
What are we talking about?
Speaking of nipples, we have Adam.
Speaking of nipples? Speaking of nipples, we have Adam Lewis Walker today.
We do. Yes. All right. I apologize, Adam. No, I don't. No, I don't at all.
Adam's going to be listening to this laughing along with us.
He's going to love it. He'll flick your nipples the next time he sees you. All right. So actually, anyone listening, go find Matt, track him down somewhere whenever we're out of lockdown, and just let the flicking happen.
Please don't.
Don't even let him know it's coming. Just sneak up behind him and go.
Yeah. Somebody's going to walk to me and flip my nipples and be like, oh, you listened to episode 260, whatever this is, 270, whatever this is.
Yeah, with Adam Lewis Walker. That's right. All right. So until that day, when that happens, you will get the biggest shout out on this podcast. I will name you. I will drop any link you want. I will, maybe send you a shirt even and some other cool stuff.
Okay.
All right. Moving on. All right. So Adam Lewis Walker. This interview was a great one because you could tell Adam was, I think that he was in the zone.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot. It was like two-parter. So we talked about TedX.
That was the second part.
That was the second part. And I don't know what we're going to title this episode because I know earlier we wanted to title it the How to Get on TEDx Stages or something like that.
Yeah.
That was the second part of this episode. I felt like the biggest part was more of the Awaken Your Alpha.
Yeah, we did spend a lot more time on the sort of mental game, how to
I don't know, Matt.
Man, it's so different being in person because now we're just like feeding off each other's energy and we can't stop making each other laugh.
Can't get the nipples out of your mind, huh? All right.
Should we start this over or just keep rolling? What do you think?
I'm okay with it. It's up to you.
All right, let's just keep going. It's been like we've had this like pent up, like not actually seeing each other for like 2 months, and now we're just like cracking each other up.
I'm shedding a tear.
Oh.
It's quivering over here.
All right, so Adam, he's got a book called Awaken Your Alpha.
Yes, he does.
And it's all about, getting the right mindset, generating momentum in your business, confidence, feeling fulfilled, all of that kind of stuff that you need to like push your business forward and to push your life forward.
That's it, Matt. You got it.
There you go.
Now you found your vein.
So that's the first half, and then after that, he's got a podcast all about how to get your own TED Talk.
Yes.
And so he's interviewed people who have given TED Talks, but also the facilitators of the TED Talks behind the scenes.
He basically debunks the process.
Yeah.
And tells you exactly how to get the talk and then what to do in the talk. We went into that just a little bit, but really it was talking about like actually how to get there. And
how to get a TED Talk. Yeah.
And the kind of the concept that you have to have in mind. It's probably...
And also what to do with that TED Talk, because I feel like this happens especially with podcasts and like media appearances and things like that, right? You go do a podcast, you go do a media appearance, you get in like a publication and you post it to your Facebook wall and go, hey, look at me, I'm cool, I did this. But then you never really do anything to like leverage that publicity that you just got.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask him, once you've had a TED Talk, what kind of cool things can you leverage that TED Talk into?
Dude.
So, I mean, this is going to be one of our episodes on the longer end.
As is this intro.
Intro. We'll try to be more concise with future intros. We still haven't even gotten to the comp or the sponsorships yet.
Well, it's going to be a long intro. It's fine. And Dickinson's process.
Say it again a little slower.
Dickinson's.
Okay.
Process.
Yes.
That's going to be an important one.
Just Dickens. Yeah, it's just Dickens.
Oh, it is, huh?
Yeah.
It's because I wrote down Dickinson. I don't know why. Okay, Dickens. Yeah, you're right. Charles Dickens.
You're
Dickens.
Correct. Yeah. All right, let's talk about how you can get the notes
Dickens.
for this episode.
I had to correct that on my notes.
All
okay. So the notes. We're obviously taking notes on this whole entire intro for you. So you want it? No, we don't. We just take notes on the actual body, the core thing. And there's a lot though. So like Matt was saying, there's mindset side, then there's actual like tactical, hey, get on stages side of things. And they do blend, promise you. But get the notes. They are available for free 2 weeks from the time of this episode going live at hustleandflowchart.com/comp. hustleandflowchart.com/COM. Comp. P. That's it.
Or you can text the word comp to 38470. You get them that way as well. Ahrefs.
Yes.
Awesome sponsor. We love Ahrefs. It's funny because I was talking to our buddy Brad Costanzo about this the other day. One of the cool things that you could do with Ahrefs is you can actually, if you have an Ahrefs account, you can actually sell like website audits. So like one of the things that Brad is doing with his Ahrefs account is he's actually going and getting clients, and then he's like plugging the client's URL into Ahrefs, getting this whole like audit report of all of the things that need to be sort of shored up in their business, and then turning around and selling that as a service to other companies and saying, look, I did an audit on your site. Your site's not optimized for SEO in this area. The speed time is too slow. The load time is too slow. You've got this issue. Well, Ahrefs will actually flesh out all of those sort of issues that a site might have for SEO. And then you could go and just like sell those audits, or you could sell once you've given them the audit, you can go and sell as a service to like fix the things that you just audited.
It's like a Trojan horse into getting clients.
Exactly.
Essentially, it sounds like it's like a no brainer. You could just give it to them for free to start a conversation, be the cool guy. Yeah. But, or you could charge. I mean, yeah. And then think of all the cool services or other things that can come from just.
Well, if you have an SEO company, right, that does SEO services for people, you could put something on your website that says, get a $20 site audit. We'll go through your site, figure out all the things that need to be fixed, and give you an entire report on what needs to be fixed on your site, right? They pay you $20. You go plug in the URL into Ahrefs, print out a PDF report, send it back to them. You just made $20 in 10 minutes.
You could even do that whole and
then upsell them on the services beyond that.
The Thrivecart checkout page that I did. Mm-hmm. I did a video on this where you can do this with this other tool and essentially sell animations and then say hey, pay what you want.
Yeah, there you go.
Just approach random companies. Just go out there and start making offers, y'all.
Easy peasy.
And you could do that with Ahrefs. It's a $7 7-day trial. So think about it. It's how many of these things can you send out in 7 days? I challenge you. You can do at least probably 20, 25, 50 of these.
Yeah.
And then you're going to make the $7 back and obviously pay for your subscription too. So go get Ahrefs, AHREFS.com.
Yeah, this is one of our longest intros ever. So let's just go talk to Adam Lewis Walker now.
Mm-hmm. Adam, we're live. How you doing, my friend?
Woo! We're actual live.
Wow. Actual live now. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm happy to be. I didn't know it was live, but this.
No, we're not live streaming it anywhere, but we're live as far as we're recording now.
Oh, stand down! But
the last 20 minutes of conversation was not being recorded.
Would that have really changed anything? Let's be honest.
Wow. Well, God, I'm so glad because we
unfortunately we're out of stuff to talk about. So,
hey, if the interview is going to be as much fun as the pre-interview, I'm all good. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, man. I'm good, man.
It's a long time coming, too, because I know we chatted about this last year, 2019, at a New Media Summit when we first met you. And it was at the Mastermind. I think we were all hanging out, and we're like, what the heck? What you got going on? We're just we're good people. We're good, doing the same kind of stuff. We got to come together.
It was going to happen, man. In some things I like, that urgency, and I do have an urgency in life, but other things we knew this was coming. So I think that's why it just went this long, because we were just have we not done it yet? How has it not happened? And yeah, it was coming.
That's it, man. Yeah. So thanks for taking the time. I know you're constantly, I feel like you and I have chatted before, and there's always high energy. You do tons of podcasts. You have 2 yourself, I believe?
I have 2 and it's becoming a network. So I'm not going to do any more personally as in pure hosting. But that's it. That's the big news. My end of the Awaken Your Alpha podcast, 6 years is 400 episodes and now becoming a network, which is good because like you say, I am kind of at capacity in terms of I don't want to start any more podcasts.
Sure.
And I've got a lot of demand for interviews and kind of great guests to share. And this is the natural kind of progression. And I'm really excited about it because I think it's going to satisfy a lot of creative stuff without, being like a squirrel chasing lots of things. So I can stay focused on, what it is I'm doing with Awaken Your Alpha and then the core show and the Talk Accelerator, that show as well. And then, there'll be going to be hosts who we're all going to help kind of grow together, and kind of that's the ethos behind it. And so I'm really excited for that next level, really.
It's a good evolution. I think it's going to happen a lot more with podcasting as it matures as well. And, we're all contributors to podcast magazines, so we can see, there's just so many different niches out there, and everyone's wanting to start a podcast, and as a podcaster, you inherently want to start another podcast, and you're just wait, hold on, I don't have a life anymore.
Exactly. I resisted the urge for so long. It might have been even in that mastermind we're talking about that. I knew the Talk Accelerator was, primed to have a podcast, because that's kind of the flip side of how Awaken Your Alpha came along. The Talk Accelerator is a program, a process I do with people, and it was is there a podcast on the back end of it? And in terms of, as a byproduct of it, in terms of what I'm doing. And I was really hoping in some ways that no would be the sensible answer, because I resisted that. I don't want to be one of these people with multiple podcasts and just running around just doing all these different podcasts. Because it's unavoidable to dilute yourself a bit. If you've got 2 podcasts, then you you kind of each one, you dilute yourself. No matter how much of a legend you are or how disciplined you are, you're diluting yourself. It's like if you've got 10 kids, same thing. There's not a lot you can do about that.
It's a good point. Perfect analogy, by the way.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think
you love your kids just as much as they get 1/10 of your love.
Yeah. I think it's probably about once a week I go to Joe and I'm like, hey, I got a new idea for a podcast. And he's like, shut up, Matt. Shut up.
Hey, show me your face. Get it over here. Slap.
I literally have so many ideas for podcasts that I want to do. I should start a podcast about podcast ideas. It'd be I could probably consider make an episode every week with that too.
What you got to do is just post all these ideas freely out into the world and say the gift is yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a real thing though, isn't it? Especially because if you know the medium and you can do it, like you've done the hard yards of what doing a podcast takes, then to roll out podcast number 5 of 7 is not going to be a bigger jump for someone going from no podcast to one podcast. So that's the in some ways the problem that there really isn't much of a barrier to entry to you if you think, oh, I want a podcast, another one. Even you need someone like there to slap you, which we don't all have.
Yeah.
Well, it's tough in quarantine. This is the first time we were telling you that Matt and I have come together. Second episode technically now, but first day. And so I haven't been able to slap him, but now I'm going to make up for it today. He's half of his face is very red right now. You can't see it. He's covered it up in makeup. But
in the modern 2020, this is very old school that you're in the same room. Very 2019. It's I like it.
It's a throwback.
Well, it's interesting because literally for the last 2.5 months, we've recorded all of our podcasts where Joe was at his house, I was at my house, and a third the guest was at their house. And so this is very bizarre. Not that bizarre. We've did it for years and years like this, but it feels weird to be kind of coming back together and being in the same place recording again.
Yeah, well, I'd seen some of yours recently, and I was fully expecting 3 little squares and us all being like that. But no, I was like, whoa, you're in the same room. You guys are just pushing the envelope.
We are. So the governor would not approve of California, but don't tell him. All right, so moving on. Let's talk about you, because that's why you're here.
I can confirm there is good distance. Just as I said before, do not sneeze.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying. We can't even touch each other if we try. We're far enough away.
I brought my mask. All right. All right. So Adam,
you mean you've got your mask on now? That's what you should have said.
We both have our masks on right now.
It'd be a great podcast audio. Hey, if Joe Rogan's doing it, we can do it. All right.
Yeah. It's all good. It's all good.
All right, man. Wow. I don't even know where to start.
We've covered a lot.
Where should we start, Adam?
Well, so there's 2 conversations we want to chat about with you. Yes. So you're probably the better one to tell us which of the 2 conversations to start with. We want to talk about Awaken Your Alpha and all the mental game stuff that you help train people on. But we also want to talk about TEDx and how to get TEDx talks and all that sort of thing. So between those 2 topics, where do you think the better place to start is?
Natural sort of chronological order. Awaken Your Alpha kind of summed up is amplify your mission, and the Talk Accelerator is amplify your message, because that's just a tool. So I think we've always got to start with kind of within, and the kind of if you're interested in any kind of story, and I take no offense if you're not, then that's where that would all really come from. That and the Talk Accelerator and the TEDx in my journey and how I've gone to that is just the evolution and just kind of a very organic progression that aligned with my sort of overall mission. So I think start with the Awaken Your Alpha is kind of like the core, the long-standing, elder statesman in the room, as it were. So that's the one.
I'm going to throw a little stick in the spokes really quick and ask you, hey, let's talk about your evolution really quick and set the stage here. And because I know you've done TEDx's, multiple, right?
So I used to be I was originally from England, not Australia. I'm sure you guys know that, but some people out there, some people still think I'm Australian.
Come on.
I know. So anyway, I'll try not to say no worries, which I do say no worries, which throws people. So I'm originally from England. I was a teacher for around about a decade, semi-professional athlete in the pole vault. So that kind of the lifestyle thing went well together because we had the summers off is when I'd compete the most. So I did that for, a good while. I was always entrepreneurial on the side because I never saw myself long-term in a school environment. It supported the lifestyle I was into at the time. And I, had sort of offline businesses. So Sports Speed Academy is a youth strength and conditioning, multiple locations that I did on top of the teaching. And then I founded the UK Youth Conditioners Association. And then, I had a pole vault career ending and injury, even an accident in the rain, as it happens to.
That sounds very dangerous.
Yeah, in the pole vaulting is, I like to crank up a notch. So we pole vault in the rain in England, horizontal rain in the summer. And so surprisingly, someone got badly injured. That was me, and that was the end of pole vault. And there was kind of a few years of multiple operations, rehab, prehab, and ultimately depression about a year after that. And that was really like that kind of reinventing myself and fighting back. It was really like my Awaken Your Alpha kind of journey that then led to co-authoring a book in 2013, The New Rules of Success. And then that was the idea really for Awaken Your Alpha, both in a book and a podcast at the same time, but knowing that I'm not in that privileged position that I could sit in my log cabin, writing a book and researching it for 4 years. The wife wouldn't have appreciated that. We would have got very hungry. So the podcast at the same time was an elaborate research tool for the book.
Well, that's a perfect reason for a podcast. You can almost research, write the book while you're talking if you wanted to. That's why I still do that. It's still kind of my methodology. And so I 2014 started the podcast. 2015 moved to the States, to the middle of nowhere, into the woods and the wilderness and the Great Lakes. Good for podcasting and writing books. And then 2016, Awaken Your Alpha, the TedX. 2018, Awaken Your Alpha, the book, finally out, the legacy project. And then 2020, it's becoming a network. And and 2019 was really when the Talk Accelerator podcast finally started coming out as well.
Where are you based out of right now?
So northern Michigan, up on the Great Lakes, Lake Huron. So I can walk out my door and paddleboard, which I've got more and more. I've got some say insane idea that I want to be the first guy to paddleboard straight up to Canada. I think it's doable. I'm still not fully committed because I've only been paddleboarding a little while.
Dude, paddleboarding's amazing. It's so I've seen your picture.
I love it, and I tested myself out with longer ones. My first one I did like an hour. I was like, I enjoyed that. Then I did 2 hours. I still enjoyed that. So it's just getting up to, because I think it will take ballpark figures between 12 and 15 hours, depending how fast I'm going. Okay. So, I think I'm going to test it a little bit further.
Are there any sharks in the Great Lakes?
No, it's not a lot.
As far as we know.
There's a lot of shipwrecks. It does get quite rough up on the lakes. There's I think the most shipwrecks in the States, 200 plus shipwrecks around this area, big, huge boats.
Oh, wow.
It gets quite rough. So that's the issue of the crossing kind of up to Canada. In that 12, 15 hour period, it's you're going to have quite big waves, probably, unless you're very lucky. And the reason it appeals to me also, I don't want to paddleboard overnight. I think if I get a 6 a.m. start and finish maybe 6 or 8 p.m., so good. So anyway,
what happens if you get to the Canadian border and they're like, sorry, no entry, you got to turn around and go back?
I was joking about this. I'm like, what a shame I can't do it this year. And then someone else said, I think you'll be all right, because the last thing, if they see a paddleboarder coming into this Canadian island, they're not going to think you've come from America, because that's mental. But,
Then they're going to be confused with your accent, and then
they'll be like, "G'day, mate."
Damn, he came from a far away. How did he find this place? Yeah. No, I think you were snowboarding. No, I think you were paddleboarding, wasn't it? In the snow, or there was snowy around you, or something like that.
Yeah. Yesterday, we can talk about all the mindset of you've got you can overcome your environment. But also, there's certain things like in the world now, you've got to accept the things you can't control. So what I like about being, in the wilderness type stuff is, it's pretty chilly and it's been getting warmer for paddleboarding. So I kind of broke out the paddleboard and I've been getting into it, but doing it a few times a week, early morning. Because again, the lake is only really, it's like the sea. It's only flat at the morning, sunrise and sunset. And then the last week or so, it's got really cold here. It turns, and it did snow in the last week. And so I've been looking at the temperature every day and like, damn, I really wanted to paddleboard. And it got to over a week, and I'm like, I want to get better. And so yesterday morning, I woke up early, sunrise kind of thing. And I looked at the temperature and I thought, it's too cold. I knew it was too cold. And then I was like, is it too cold? I'll walk down there and I'll wrap up and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, it's too cold. But the thing is, I wrapped up so much. I went on my snow boots. I wore my snow boots on the paddleboard.
That's awesome.
And I had wrapped up. So the only thing was like my face, just a little like face. And this is why it's a bit red today. So my nose was exposed and I had gloves on and I'm on the paddle. I'm using the paddle. The paddle's obviously metal. And so when I was about 15 minutes out going past the harbor, my fingers are fully numb at this point. And I'm roasting because I've got so many layers on, but my fingers are fully numb. So I had to abort. But then I'm still halfway out when I decide I need to abort. So you can see my GPS on my shed. It's just like a big turnaround, a big circle, come back. And then for the rest of the day, when I was in my man cave, for the rest of the day, my fingers felt really weird and my nose was still cold at the end of the day. And it's just like a check that, there's a reason, you are human. You've got to, when people say you can't do stuff, a lot of times they're just being lightweights, but sometimes, there's a reason. And also,
hey, Arnold would never say that.
Yeah, you don't mess with nature is the other thing, which is a good little touch. So the crossing will be in August if I'm going to do it.
And then you'll have to read that Arnold quote that was, do it, just do it.
Exactly.
Print it on his wall.
I'm glad I went and did it though, because I really did want to get out there and have a little. I did have a paddle board, and I'm still here, so it's. But I will respect the temperatures, and if it's cold that day, I'm not going.
Yeah. That's fair enough. I love it, man. And maybe that pivots us right into Awaken Your Alpha type stuff, all the mindset work. And so, I guess where do we start there? Because I know there's a lot of, it's inner game, mental game.
Well, what is the meaning of Awaken Your Alpha? Why don't we start at that point?
Okay. So the Awaken Your Alpha, if you look at the definition of alpha, because I started the TedX with this as well, that I felt like for many years I was almost defending that I'd called it something alpha, and I had to defend because people are like, oh, alpha. Does that mean you're like a butthead and like a knuckle dragging ape? And I'm like, well, let's talk about this. So the definition of alpha in the dictionary, so from the solar system, it's Alpha Centauri, star that shines the brightest. Doesn't sound like a meathead knuckle dragging anything. And then from the animal kingdom is to achieve the highest rank in a dominance hierarchy. And it gives the example of the alpha female in an elephant pack. So that sounds pretty good to me. And so the Awaken Your Alpha is that combination to achieve the highest rank of areas of your life that are important to you, and to also shine as bright as you can with your time here. And that's not to put others into your shadow, but to illuminate. So that's really the whole concept. And generally people are like, oh, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
so that's kind of how I approach it. And that's what Awaken Your Alpha means to me. And again, in the early days, it has evolved, because in the early days when people would ask me, what is Awaken Your Alpha? I had to be like, I knew what it was and I could explain it, but it took a little bit longer than that.
No, that I think that explains it perfully, and everybody can relate to it in some fashion because of the two different sides of the meaning.
But this is the thing. I mean, it's the one of the benefits. A lot of times with the TEDx type platform, people focus on, get your message out, and it's good credibility thing, and it is. But you can't avoid the process of going through it. And so by doing a TEDx talk on Awaken Your Alpha, it forced me to, what are the priorities? What is Awaken Your Alpha? And then how can I say it in the least amount of words to communicate that? So, that ended up. Apart from that's beneficial to then communicate with others, but then that ended up being the core of the book. The three phases of my TEDx were awareness, action, and ascension, which is basically the process of Awaken Your Alpha. And then that became the three main sections of the book. So it was a really beneficial process to go through, and just I'm a big believer in the power in clarity, and how much there's so much power in clarity. If you can do the work to explain something that used to take you 5 minutes, that you can explain in 1 minute, for you personally, there's a lot of power in that.
Ooh, okay. I kind of want to break down. Well, actually, let's break down this 3. I think that would be really helpful. But also, let's maybe talk about it in terms of you becoming your own alpha, like your story, because I know you went through some adversity. You mentioned, when you got hurt, and because you were trying to compete to get to the Olympics, I believe, right?
Yeah, that was always my goal. And again, I like to, make sure you're pointing in the right direction. So if you wanted in the broad goal, I wanted to get to the Olympics. As early as I could remember, I just remember growing up watching the Olympics when they came on and just loving the variety, the random sports that would pop up that you'd never see again for another 4 years. And just the whole ethos of that mind, body and spirit, the whole Olympic ideal, and just always wanted to, I've only ever wanted one tattoo, and that's the Olympic circles. And I clearly have not got that because you have to go to the Olympics, in my opinion. I'm sure there's some
it's like the Iron Man or something like that.
I'm sure there's some guys out there with their Olympic circles, and just imagine that conversation. Oh, you in the Olympics? No.
I
just really like it.
I watch every event.
No, but I wanted to go. So I don't have any tattoos. I didn't make it. So fast forward, I was 28 I was 28 when I was in the UK Challenge final, and that kind of my progression as close as I got, really. Actually, I probably got slightly closer a few years after that in the Paralympics, which you can only talk about so much, but so I don't mention that so much. But I was so obsessed with getting to the Olympics, I actually got invited to a Paralympic potential day after my knee was properly ruined, and I ended up making it into the Great Britain volleyball team. So they have a sitting volleyball team, so they have 2 minimal disability athletes in the squad. I was one of them because I wasn't missing a limb, but my knee was properly ruined. They do all the classifications, which is another minefield. And I was in that squad in the build up to 2012, and every time we had a major championship, I would get cut to go because there's only 2 of them spots, and they happen to be our best 2 players in like 20 years that we've ever had. So that was never going to change. So again, did I want to commit? Basically, they wanted you full-time professional, but 0 support. Did I want to commit to that level to then, not make to the Olympics? Or was I going to have to, acknowledge that this is not the route. This is not going to work, and be a realist. And, and that's hard for, some people, including me, if you're so like, I'm going to do this and I'm committed to this. And I suppose technically there was a very slim chance, but I also had to be a realist. It was a very slim chance, and it was largely out of my hands. It wasn't based on kind of my performance. These places were kind of set.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then you had this whole transition into, you moved to the States to America.
Yeah, that was another thing, we kind of, that became real. And I talk about it in the book and the TEDx as well, is that became real in terms of our first son was born 2010. And we talked about, we wanted to, like a lot of people talk about these things. We thought we was going to move to America. We wanted to move to America. First son's born. Okay, when are we going to move to America? So setting that deadline. Kids are pretty resilient. Anytime up till they're 5, it generally doesn't really matter. They're not starting school. So we were like, okay, he's born. Well, that's literally, and we didn't do any more thought around it. We set a deadline. We're going to move to America before he starts school. And we landed literally September 1st. And he started school the next week in America. It was getting so tight. We had him enrolled at both schools, one in England, one in America. And then it all just came through, and we got here and he cracked on. And, without that kind of flag in the sand of this is the deadline, this is what we're doing, and then filling in the stepping stones between it wouldn't have happened, because it is an absolute mission as well. And, if you focus on all the details of, I've got to do this, that's when a lot of people don't bother. So, I think I'm a big believer of kind of setting these deadlines and things that fire you up and kind of add to your mission or part of your mission, and then doing the work.
I love it. Yeah. There's no better time than right now. That Arnold quote, there's probably a reason why it's right there in front of you every single day. But let's get to it. The awareness side of the transition. So, I guess describe that phase for you, since there's 3 phases that you define as Awaken Your Alpha. So awareness being the first one. Yeah.
So awareness, simple thing people can do now. And again, a lot of this, I'm sure, isn't going to be groundbreaking, but it's thoughtful in terms of, I'm a big believer in, the quality of the questions you ask yourself. It really correlates to the quality of the life you're going to have or you are having. So, the book is especially as whole series of questions throughout it. It's not me telling you, this is the alpha and this is what you should do. This is just questions for you to ask yourself. So in that awareness, a simple thing to go around kind of a process or something you might want to do is just your personal satisfaction with aspects of your life. You literally list them out and rank them out of 1 to 10. And this is, again, linked to not something to be judged by others. It's not me going, oh, finances, that's a 10 out of 10 for you. Well done. You could be, technically by world standards or society standards, really rich. And you could put a 1 for your personal satisfaction with your finances for whatever reason. Same for, your, intimate relationship or your community or your friends or your health or your fitness, whatever it is for you. And if it's not important to you, refer to what I said before. Don't put it on the list then. These are areas that are important to you. So this is where it becomes very individualistic. And people always like say, oh, I need help with lots of things or everything's okay. Well, everything can't be exactly the same. Out that list, if you've got one that's just a little bit by your own standards, lower, and usually there's 1 or 2 that are, glaringly lower. and it might not be what other people think. And this is not saying to go and show people necessarily. This is for you, because then you're usually more truthful. That is where you start. That is your priority. Because if something on there is a 2 or a 4 or a 6, are you okay with that? And if everything else is an 8 or everything's a 10 for whatever reason, and there's one that's an 8, that's your priority because you've put it as something that's important to you. And it's not where you want it to be. So that automatically becomes your priority. And then, what actions could you do? List out all the things that would potentially move the needle and just brain dump all of them. And then just get a pencil or pen or whatever and just realistically cross out all the ones that are not going to really move the needle as much as, 3 actions. And the ones that are going to do 80% of the heavy lifting, and then just do them.
That's pretty dang powerful because, like you said, it's probably not like anything we haven't heard totally like groundbreaking, like you said, but it's actually the exercise of doing it. And for me, I know Matt does a lot of this too, is journaling and just prompting different things, like kind of similar to what you just said. And then like what I like to do is just then ask why for each one of these points, and then like ask why. The whole thing is like 3 times and you finally get to the root of that thing. And what's really freaking awesome is that it'll uncover some weird mental block, and it usually relates to another one. So then it's like, that's a process of condensing into the 80-20, like you said. So you're not doing a million freaking things, because that's not going to work out.
Yes, no. So I just grabbed the book in case I don't want to miss anything in terms of actions or things for people. I want to give them actionable stuff as well. I don't want to just talk in like broad concepts and like, hey, go do your best and all that sort of stuff. I want to give specific stuff. So around there, I have like 30 actions in the book, and we can just like pick in and around all of them. And I think I might not have even put it in the first section, but something might have come up on your show before, but the Dickens process. Have you guys aware of that process? Or
I am not.
No. So this process, I'm thinking of more like awareness and even this can be into actions as well. But it's based on it's an NLP sort of practice that, again, I didn't come across it through sort of NLP circles. I come via, eventually, I think it might have been Tim Ferriss who came with it via Tony Robbins.
Okay.
And he comes from obviously he gets all his stuff from the NLP world. So it's basically based on the Charles Dickens, the Christmas Carol. So it's about, and I do a lot of some actions in there. Once you've really clearly identified your limiting beliefs, and there's a really cool action, sort of exercise putting there around the tripod, and really kind of trying to cast doubt on some of your limiting beliefs that they are just beliefs and they're just a story, and we all have these stories that are, some help us, some don't, and just being aware of that. But once you've identified these limiting beliefs, you put them through the kind of the filter, and that, because usually people, when they kind of let these things slide, is they have an escape route for themselves. So they always think, or that hope that, it's going to be okay, it's going to be better in the future. Or they always have this rose tinted that it used to be better. Or, and so there's always a time period for them to escape from. So what I like about the Dickens process, you have to confront head on past, present, and future. So you take this limiting belief, whatever it is, and I'm not going to go into the details. This is like the quick fire, because I know we got lots to cover. Yeah. But the ultimate kind of core behind it is, so take that one limiting belief, and it's got to be something that's, real to you, and you've done the work before to identify your limiting belief, and then you literally just say, so in the past, what has this limiting belief cost you, the loved ones, and anyone that's important around you over, in the past, in these years, building up to this point, that kind of, you can't dodge. So and be brutally honest with yourself, ruthless. What has it cost you? And the results of what the answer is the answer. And then you do a similar thing. So present, what is that limiting belief that you've identified? So it's not like, oh, I don't have one. You've identified at this point, what is that currently costing you in your business, your life, your health, those around you that are, directly affected by how you roll, basically. What is that currently costing you? It can be financially, it can be, spiritually, it can be, happiness. What is that currently costing you? And then the final one, that final ghost of the future. What is this going to cost you if you don't deal with it, 5 years into the future, 10 years into the future? And when you multiply these little compounding effects, and that really it covers past, present, and future.
Yeah,
there's nowhere to hide. So the issue is okay, are you gonna swallow that? Are you just gonna live with that, or are you gonna think, oh crap, that actually is the pain point, that's enough that I'm gonna do something about that? So that's that awareness, because we've all got our weaknesses, our Achilles heels.
Yep.
And it's just, when we're talking about awareness, it's doing things like this that a lot of people won't do. And something like the Dickens process is a nice one to do annually.
That's a great one.
I would say every 3 months, but I'm just also being a realist. Annually would be solid, and that's something, it's good when, like, a lot of this stuff you say, might not be groundbreaking, but whether it's you're in a group and like someone like me, right, I know January 15th forces us to sit down and go through. I mean, you can go through that Dickens process for like literally like an hour or 90 minutes. It's like anything. The more you put in, the more you get out.
Yeah.
If you just kind of like fly through it, you're not going to get a whole load out of it. And so I just wanted to kind of go through the concept. Yeah.
And do you how would you suggest, like, or I guess, how do you apply it? Like, I'm sure there's like personal, family, you can do business, because there's just so many of these things that we're just passively letting go.
So I mean, you could go for an obvious one, because I know, and I just jumps to mind, one of my more previous, but I'm sure there's still some of it hanging around at this point, but I used to have, definitely had money issues around, I associate, and I put it, the chapter in my book was called The Rich Arsehole or the Poor Arsehole, because I used to correlate, financial to, again, looking back now in my upbringing, it was kind of subtly, and in some ways not so subtly, that if you'd done well financially, you were a bit of an arsehole, or you'd done something morally corrupt to get there. And it's repeated in movies all over the place. It's hilarious now when you're aware of it.
Yep.
And also because of that, like growing up when I was at like careers and stuff, I actively veered away from any profession that I felt had a good financial money associated to it.
So it was like a subconscious thing. You're like,
So I was like, literally like, so I was aspiring, I wanted to be a graphic designer or a PE teacher because of the lifestyle aspects. And I was pretty confident they didn't earn a huge amount at that point. So I was like, I can wear shorts. I'm active. It's healthy. I like the lifestyle. You get summers off. So I ended up being a PE teacher. And anything where it was like, a fair amount of money associated to it, which a lot of friends were, I was like, nah, it's not for me. Like dismissed it offhand. And it's only from like later down the line when I'm bumping into people that have done very well financially, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're not an asshole. There's something's up here. And then, meeting poor people, I'm like, you are an asshole. What's going on here? So, I mean, so there's no correlation between that. And some people wear either as like a status thing. It's irrelevant. So, with the money issues, you could put, there's something that's nice and quantifiable. For example, if you put that as a limiting belief, that if you think, someone who's done well financially is a bit of a dick, why are you ever going to aspire to that? Or more importantly, why would you ever achieve that? You'd always pull the rug from yourself at some point. So if you put that limiting belief and issues like that into the Dickens process, for example, I mean, in the past, you could really, what has that cost you and your loved ones around you? Yeah. And then in terms of like currently, and then in the future, I mean, that's a clear one with a tangible, likely a figure attached to it. But you realistically, a lot of the limiting beliefs, you can put a financial figure to it if that's how it works in your mind. But usually a lot of the other stuff is going to be lifestyle and things you're missing out on, and people and real kind of non-quantifiable, at least in terms of a monetary sense, but just a lot deeper than that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's just so fascinating when you start digging. It's the whole old analogy of the onion. You start just finding these layers, and you're like, holy crap, this has been holding me back for like most of my life, or I've been like procrastinating on this thing because it just doesn't sit right, or you don't see the attachment to the future. That's why I love the whole like past, present, future thing. Like,
well, that's the other thing, because people sometimes say, it's not going that well now. It hasn't gone that well in the past, but it's going to get better. You're going to do anything different? You're going to change things? No.
It's the whole insanity quote, right?
Yeah, it could get better. Whereas stuff like this, kind of, you can't really sidestep it, which people are really good at. Sure, we all are. So that's why I really like that one, because you come across a lot of thing in doing all this sort of stuff, and I only wanted to put the best of the best in the book, and like what really moves the needle, and less is more. So so that's some of the stuff that goes in there. So that's good. I like all that sort of stuff. Just
cool. Well, thanks for sharing the Dickinson process. I've never heard of it, but I'm going to do it for sure.
So that's kind of the awareness phase, right? That was
and that's just being more aware of some of the limiting beliefs, and just even just that basic thing of we all have that. You have beliefs, because some people are so like, this is the truth, and like, well, it's a belief that you really strongly think on, and you just got to be open to the fact that you could be definitely wrong, which I think is a real freeing thing. Everything I'm saying here could be absolute rubbish, and I'm open to that. But some people really aren't. If you're so fixed mindset, it's a concern, not for the person probably, but I'm just like, it's very hard to grow when you're in that way. So it's just having that open mindset. And I was going off on a tangent slightly, but
it's true, man. I just finished a book. Matt's reading it now. It was recommended, but The Courage to be Disliked is a freaking solid book. It sounds like you've read it.
I haven't, but I like the sound of that.
Dude,
I mean,
you love it. Yeah.
It is about what you think it's about, but it's also about way more than what the title sort of sounds like.
Yeah, check it out. It's similar. It's basically squashing a lot of beliefs that a lot of us hold, and we walk around life that way with these blinders on, and it really holds us a lot of, all of us have that in some sense. But until you take that blinder off, where you see what's possible over here that you've been resisting for some reason.
And there's usually like, a lot of the internal stuff is so the kind of the one of the exercises you could do potentially around that tripod is literally any kind of statement, like everyone has their I can't type statements. Whether it's I can't do this, I can't do that, and then like give me three reasons why that's true. So you have to think, well, why do I think that? And usually people are really good at them. They're like, and there's like a really solid argument, but they've never flipped it. So now come up with, you're like in a court of law, come up with 3 counter arguments to cast doubt. Give me 3 reasons why that might not be true. Whether you believe them or not, you've got to come up with that. Try and be neutral and the other side. And then you get these 3 solid arguments that discounts every, one of the reasons why you thought it was true. Yeah. And then just that, if you can just like knock one of the legs from the tripod of this belief that you held so strong, that's all you need to do. It just shifts your perspective. And that, I find that's a really useful, kind of linked to what we've been talking about. That's a useful way to go about it. Because it'd be stuff like, you're like, I can't be the world's biggest movie star. And then you'd have the reasons because I'm from, Creepy Crawley, a little place in the south of England. And then these other reasons, and because of what? Because I'm like 5, let's say because I'm 5'8" or something like that. And then the flip side would be like, okay, what about like Michael Sheen, who's from like Port Talbot in Wales, which is a little steel mill type industrial place in the middle of nowhere. And now he's like some Hollywood megastar. Okay, I'm 5'8". Well, Tom Cruise is a midget. He's 5'6".
Sylvester
stuff
Stallone.
Like that. And then you're just like, wait a... So I actually could do that in theory. I'm just talking rubbish. Okay. But there's just little things like that, Yep. So, because the number one thing holding you back is going to be yourself.
That's right. Yeah, until you expose it and put that spotlight on there, then you're going to be not what you're not going to be that alpha that you want to be. Taking it back to there.
It's just an approach to it. I definitely don't have all the answers. It's just that kind of commitment to the you don't have all the answers, so you're just going to keep cracking on, and just not being arrogant, thinking you know loads of stuff, but you're just open to it, and you're just committed to the pursuit of trying to
of yourself, basically.
And fulfillment. Fulfillment. Basically, it's fulfillment, and so everyone wins in that scenario, because that's why you get unhappy millionaires, or someone says, oh, you got a great job, and you're like miserable, because it's not a great, it may be a great job by society standard, but that person who's doing it hates it for some reason, because they haven't done this sort of work, and they've been too influenced by other people's thoughts and beliefs, and even their beliefs that are not helping them.
Yeah. Well, unless I'm kind of thinking we maybe fast forward, like maybe the other points, because this is really great stuff. I feel like
I can literally give a little spot on like actions and ascension, but or just
maybe we do that, and then because I want to kick over to the TEDx stuff too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I just this is a good thing. I can just jump into the kind of the book, and apparently I've been told that if you jump in at any point, it's reasonable. That's an undersell. Sorry, it's very good.
It's like, reasonable.
Wow, that's the best. I'm the
you
best.
Can jump in it.
It's reasonable. Get this book.
You can jump into any page and it'll be okay.
He's an honest man. This app.
Okay, so I've opened it on. Oh, and I like this. Bearing in mind we were talking about Arnold. So I have one chapter in the book in the action section called, and this is all we're talking about action then, becoming the hunter. And it starts with a quote. I like quotes in my book as well. They're not all Arnold, but you don't want to pick that right.
But 80% of them.
This one is, if it bleeds, we can kill it. And that's Arnold from Predator 1987. But the point is, so I'll just talk to you through this. So look, are you waiting for your next meal, or are you going out to catch it? Quite simply, this is the hunter versus lurker mentality. And again, I talk about that. I literally do anything to get another line from Predator in there, but there is a point to it. So in this scene, so basically in the classic movie, there's a critical time when the group are getting picked off one by one en route to the helicopter rescue. It's clear that no one's going to survive if they continue this way. So they decide to stop, take back control of their own lives, and become the hunter. So the whole point around that is, do you let life pick away at you until there's nothing left? Do you lurk around waiting for opportunities to come to you? Or do you make a stand now before it's too late? Get out of your own way and hunt down and create opportunities to thrive. So the point of that is, well, some people are waiting for things, but even those who are going out, like, do all that hustle to get that opportunity, do you then, hunt within that opportunity? Because you may work really hard to get the opportunity, and then like, oh, I've got it. Yes. But within that, that's just like a foot in the door, 9 out of 10. What are you going to do with that? And so I think that's important. Just that, again, it's the mentality, that hunter versus lurker mentality, that, waiting for someone to come and knight you. So then you're going to do this thing, or you're going to become that man, that woman, once you've got X, once someone said, hey, you're ready, you're great. You don't need to do that. If you want to do certain things, you have to be first. You be that person who's capable of achieving that stuff, and go out and start working towards it.
I love it. Yeah, it's be, and actually act. Don't assume that you need to be validated, or like, oh, it's okay, Matt, you can do that thing. Like, bullshit. Go out there and do it.
And there's so much documented now. The information's out there, so that's a time in history that's never been like that. You want to know what. Someone you genuinely, and you've looked into it, and you're not just chasing them for the wrong reasons, but you think someone's got aspects, at least you think, actually, I'd like to achieve that. I could see that lifestyle, because it's probably well documented. I like their daily habits. Or you're like, okay, they do this, and this every day. Wow. And if you're like, I don't like the science, I won't do that. I can't do that. That's a bit of an effort, but I want to have X in terms of what they've achieved or their lifestyle. The two don't match. And then a lot of times you get the response, oh, it's okay for them because they've got this. I'll be like that when I get X. It doesn't work like that. That person was very likely doing that when they had nothing. And that's why they're doing, or, in their current situation they are now. So it's important, you decide, do you want to do stuff you respect yourself for now or not? And then these are some of the things potentially.
I like that. Yeah. I want to go deeper, but I know we got more to cover.
Oh yeah, so that was actions, wasn't it? That was
good. Yeah. So ascension now, right?
Yeah. So ascension, and really that's all. It's another A as well. I like my A's, as you notice, but that's just about really talking about a lot of times people do all these fundamentals we're talking about when they're really struggling and they will go, I've got to do this. I've got to get, do the work and got to change things. We talked about hitting that pain points. That's when obviously you're struggling and you'll do these fundamentals and you'll come up till you get to society's norms and everyone's like, yes, the underdog, you made it. Hey, if you continue doing these fundamentals, guess what? You're going to continue to improve and progress and grow. But, people will start throwing rocks at you because then you're sticking your head up a little bit. And so a lot of people stop and then they gradually slip down because they're not doing the fundamentals that got them out of the hole. And they slip down to struggling again. And they're like, oh, crap, this ain't good. I better start again. So they're just like doing this up and down. So that ascension is really just taking that commitment to the lifestyle or what have you worked out as working for you to continue to use that momentum and just push on because it's not a destination. This is how you roll at this point. So that ascension is just that really trying to improve on areas of your life, and really that kind of when we're talking about things like mastery, is where I put Robert Greene's sort of his interview and stuff in that section of the book. It's not talking about doing these basic things. This is more that when you're really dedicated to something and doing your craft and fulfillment. So talking about things like, okay, you've got this in place now. What you adventure and legacy is something I talk about, and ultimately what's all coming for us when we talk about legacy. What are you going to be known for, and when that day comes? So that's really that whole section of the book. And so I mean, I'll jump into something there as well to see if there's anything relevant. But
no, that's good stuff, man. And while you're doing that, it's just it's the whole thing of just stay on the path, because like you said, the legacy day can start any day now. But if you're not on your path, consistent efforts, I mean, that's the way. So enjoy the path.
So I mean, I talked about again, I think it's been done to death, but I mentioned in there about these your environment as well. And I think podcasts is a real interesting medium, especially with the world how it's gone now. And people obviously, a lot of people do complain about their environment, and again, like that kind of like, oh, it's okay for you, but I'm in a really tough and crappy environment right now, physically in a rough environment. Well, with the internet and there's ways, and you got to work around that, and your physical environment doesn't have to dictate your mental environment. You could be people saying, oh, but I'm at work and these chumps sit down at me every day at lunch and they complain all day. Well, you got headphones, you got a phone, plug it in. You don't have to participate in that sort of thing. So I think it's really important to create your own environment, both mentally and physically. And when you do the mental one, if you're committed to it, the physical one will follow. You'll end up in the middle of nowhere if that's where you want. I started this podcast in Crawley in a very urban environment, and now I'm not there. And again, someone may do the flip. They may have started in the middle of nowhere, and like I'm in the middle of nowhere, and they want to go into a very urban environment. This is where it's very individual thing. And the guy I talk about in the book, Rami Ramani, he's originally from Egypt, and he was set to he was an Emmy award-winning film director in Egypt. He does all this he's an expert on all the ancient the pyramids and things like that. He's done National Geographic, all that sort of stuff. He's like the Mr. Egypt there, and he was really set up his his whole family, documentary filmmakers. And then the Egyptian revolution happened, and his environment completely flipped, and they literally, like a movie, had to escape on the last plane using his contacts and things. And he came what he thought was just getting out of there while it was all kicking off, because they were all literally almost murdered.
Wow.
And he came to LA, what he thought was for a little bit, or I think it was New York initially, and he's never been able to go back. So he talk about ripping out of your environment, and he had to start from scratch with literally his character and his skills, but not getting any acknowledgement and respect of what he did before. He was treated as like ground zero. And he had to start from scratch and go and literally filming, kids' birthday parties and doing that to build up to now his multiple Emmys and things like that. So it's completely different environments. And, a lot of people, or some people might have, there was many reasons that he could justify why it hasn't worked for him over here, because of, he'd done all that. And now he's in this environment. Oh, woe is me. Didn't. And one thing he said as well that really stuck with me is, if you ever ask him how's it going, and he always says never been better, and he genuinely means it. And he talked to some of his success around another side of just no one wants to hang around the person who's going to just like unload all of their crap on you. So, you know, so it's like, why have you, you know, why has he done so well? And yes, there's lots of good cameramen, but when you're around someone like him, for example, it's a joy to be around, and, you know, he just makes the whole thing better. So, you know, I just thought that was a random point to jump in at, but, you know, it's
it just shows like, hey, you're ascending, you know, you're staying the fundamentals, but at the same time, it's like I was mentioning before, it's like you never know when you're gonna go. So like, why would you want to live or rush and always think of the future, the next thing? It's like,
yeah, and you hear about these,
like be all here.
These people, you know, really dug to that sort of that high level in their craft and whatever it is they're doing. And you know, if a lot of times you hear, if everything was taken away from you, what would you do? And a lot of times they seem quite calm and just like, I just crack on, because they have so much faith and confidence in themselves and the level of mastery that they've dedicated to. And, you know, in a lot of times, sometimes they have to start from scratch, but, you know, they just kind of relish that challenge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. No, I love this stuff. But let's switch over and talk a little bit about the. Why are you laughing at me? I know it's an abrupt transition, but I want to make sure we talk about the TEDx stuff too, because I know that's what you're also well known for. And
well, that ties in as well, because that was definitely a legacy piece for me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it totally ties in, because we're talking about that higher level. I don't think you'd want to go anywhere near the TEDx stage if you didn't, at least in your head, feel like, hey, I'm ready to step up, or even if I'm not ready, I'm gonna step up. I think is a more appropriate way to phrase it, because again, if you wait till you're ready on stuff, you won't do anything, and usually it's too late if you're fully ready. So yeah, the TEDx stuff will, again, I like these things. Sometimes you just say, for whatever reason you want to do them, it's important to you. And TEDx was something I can't really remember when I decided I wanted to do one, but it was just always on my radar. I used to, in education, it's, you know, a tool in schools people use. You're talking about a subject, you pull up a TEDx video, there's someone who's more interested than you talking about that subject, who's done that level of mastery, that the kids are going to go, oh, they're not as boring as you. Let's listen to them for like 10 minutes. So I just love again, if someone's dedicated their whole life to a 10-minute talk, it's going to be pretty good usually. So I think that's, you know, so I've appreciated them in that way. And then one of my, you know, aspirations and goals is to always develop the speaking side of things, and, you know, traveling around the world. And, you know, I traveled around the world, quit my job and got married and did a year-long backpacking honeymoon. I think the next version of that is more, not so much backpacking, more like we're a little bit more finances behind me, just going around the world and
little plusher.
Yeah, a few speaking gigs with kids, because I don't think they'd appreciate some of the dumps that we stayed in.
The hostels and the rats on the ground. No,
on a side note, one of the places in Cambodia, we woke up, we had a bunch of bananas on the side of our room. And the walls were like, you know, wafer thin fences, basically. We woke up in the morning and something had eaten half of the bananas.
Oh, God.
Like in the room.
They have a lot of monkeys out there, I think, right?
I think it must have been some huge insect type thing, because there was no real huge gaps to get in our room. Anyway, we get sidetracked. But yeah, the kids wouldn't appreciate that sort of stuff. It's character building at the time. But yeah, even I would I wouldn't mind being able to afford to stay in a hotel, not a like shed.
On the ground or whatever. Yeah,
that was our record. That room was like $1.50 a night. Anyway,
hey, you can't beat that, man. But yeah, like so TEDx. I mean, it's a big legacy component. I know there's a lot of people that just see that as like, hey, this is a stage I can be on. It's popular. They have a big distribution. It's like a big pop. It's almost like going on a big podcast. Like I could be presented on the TED stage. So I guess where do we start here? Because it's obviously great for all of that, but there's probably like an inner drive, legacy being one of them, a bigger impact.
So you want to, for me personally, you've got to have that, you know, that message that you won't shut up about in some way, shape or form. So, you know, at that stage, I'd been harping on about Awaken Your Alpha in some form for, you know, a good few years. And I really believed in the message. You know, it did force me to get more clear on what exactly was it. If you're put on the spot, and there's lots of things I could talk about, but if you got 15 minutes, what would you talk about as a priority? And so that's really where some of the clarity came in. And from the power of that, you know, it's very flexible, because it is tough to get it down to, you know, a smaller talk, but then it's very versatile because, you know, I've been put into if I had to do a version of that talk in like 5 minutes, I can do it. And I've also done like a 75-minute keynote, and it didn't feel I could have gone a lot longer, because then you've got more space to bring in stories or, you know, interaction with the audience and just relax in it a little bit. And I've done that version of that talk, you know, 30, 40 times. So it's a real good tool in that sense. But then, the obvious things, it was a springboard. I was going to write a book. It's not like I say, and then I decided to write a book. I always knew I was going to write a book, but it did, you know, was a good stepping point towards that. And also in terms of book marketing, you know, or podcast marketing,
right? I
can say to people, I say, you know, if they're interested in the book, watch a few minutes of the TEDx. You literally, and I don't have to even send them a link, because you just YouTube and you write my name or Awaken Your Alpha, it pops up. Watch a few minutes of that. If you like it, you'll love the book. If you don't like it, the book's not for you. So it's a very good qualifier as well. And I think you were saying earlier about not trying to get everyone to like you. It's a really useful in that terms. And then the other side of things, it is a rightfully so a credibility stamp. Like anyone I know who's done a TEDx talk, or even if they don't tell me, it's in their signature line. I pretty much have them on both shows on my podcast, and I'll probably recommend them to other people. Barely I don't do so much research, because someone's pre-qualified them. You know, you can't get on that stage and be useless, or there's some reason someone has chose them to be on their stage. And even if they weren't the best coming onto it, they've had to do work to get to that point. So at least, and they've got a clear idea. And then, I mean, I keep going, but then they've also they've shown a level of resilience. They've dedicated themselves to a specific subject or idea, to the level of it's going to be coherent for your podcast, or, you know, for whatever it is they want to do with it. It's that like minds attract. The sort of person who gets a TEDx, you know, they don't drop in your lap generally, which is something TED is not that happy about, because I had a conversation, this is juicy. I had a conversation. TED have actually reached out to me. So I should mention now, I am not officially associated with TED. I'm an independent podcast, the Talk Accelerator. But they got such a strong brand. They do reach out to anyone who's doing anything like around that their whole brand. Sure. And we had a conversation, someone reasonably high up, and they were surprised at my approach in terms of the podcast, because I interviewed TEDx speakers and organizers, you know, for about 15, 18 minutes, and really dig into the specifics. We don't talk about their story. We don't talk about other cool stuff. It's really about the TEDx and why they're involved, what's their idea, how did they do it, and really digging into, you know, the details that would be boring to anyone unless you're in an aspiring TEDx speaker, which is, you know, the ideal listener to the podcast, which is the ideal potential client to the Talk Accelerator program. So what has come out of that is almost every TEDx organizer is saying there they have some kind of application process, which I thought was kind of obvious. TED actually has two options. So they have, you know, obviously people or the TEDx organizers go and find these speakers, and they can also apply. So these are the two options to every TEDx event. That is kind of what's there. The reality is all the TEDx organizers, they're volunteers. You know, the whole thing's non-profit, you know, at least at the TEDx level. And so, you know, they're just people like me and you. So this is voluntary. There's already a big effort to put on their event. So I've kind of, I wouldn't say exposed, but the reality of interviewing all these people, they do rely on applications and people going after it to make their job easier. Which I thought was kind of made sense. That's obvious.
It makes perfect sense. But exactly. What they came to you and they were like, wait,
I was like, this is news. Because I think they knew that I think that it was kind of like they knew they had the two options, and they felt like the applications are there. But I think at least in the case studies I've been doing, they probably thought there was a bit more of going out and doing the work to find these speakers as opposed to relying on applications. But when events are getting like 400, 500 applications, do they need to be going out and spending lots of time? They need to spend time in kind of sifting the applications. So that's you know, it's been so interesting digging into that more and more and more. And in terms of I can go through some steps. I have like the TalkX commandments. They have the TED commandments of some of their things. I have the TalkX command, at least a kind of a process, or at least a mindset of just getting in the right ballpark of kind of Yeah.
I think that's cool. Yeah. And so, 2 points I would think that are probably pretty helpful here is, how to get through the application phase or best practices. And then, a couple points on how to really smash that talk. I know I want to make sure that we're good on time though, too.
We've flown through the time, haven't we? Yeah.
I know.
That's all right. I will be gonna have to sort of stake by my claim now. I'm as a TEDx speaker, I'm supposed to be quite clear and to the point.
You're fine.
Damn it! Why did I say that? So in terms of if you're interested in getting a TEDx talk or that's something you aspire to, I mean, firstly, it's that I think the mindset shift. We've been talking a lot about mindset, so it's kind of flows into this quite nicely. That I think change the approach to like, oh, I'd like a TEDx. Yeah, that'd be nice one day. You're not going to get one. If you just need to stop that because that's, we just talked about the reality. Yes, it's that hunter versus lurker mentality. They do find some speakers. If you are working towards your Nobel Peace Prize and you're very, proactive and doing everything you're doing and you're everywhere in that community, there's a higher chance they will find you. So yes, that is a possibility. I won't discount that. If you're more in the mindset of like, I'm not willing to sit around and wonder if this is going to happen. I'm going to stick my hand up and actually do some steps, whether that's preparing yourself or being proactive and going and find out where are these events, and take that mindset that you are going to do a TEDx. It's just a question of when, and then set that deadline. If you're actually moving forward on this, it shouldn't take you longer than a year to 18 months to do it. If it takes you longer than that, then something's not working, whether you're not doing the work or you're not doing the most efficient work. So in terms of like the step one would be these essentials, and just, coming back to why is it important? Why is it a must for you to be featured on the red spot? And it needs to become a must if you're going to actually do this, because if it's just saying like, oh, that'd be quite nice, then you're relying on people coming and like discovering you, which is, that can work. But, but good luck with that. And, who knows? I can't really help you with that. But so once you, decide why is it important, and then if these reasons are, important enough for you, then that's the first thing, and then you're going to make it happen. So in terms of like the phases that kind of I look about, like kind of step 2 would be like about really get clear and do the work on your core message, because too many people try and shove their whole life story and core message on the TEDx stage. I was slightly guilty of that in my first TEDx, because you get excited with the fact that you get that time, so you just want to put a lot in there and use your 18 minutes, as it were. So start with what is your core message, and be really clear. If you can't get clear on that, then do not jump to your specific idea. So start your core message, and then we talk about the research, like going on the hunt, the TEDx, the hunt, research, and how to research and find events that at least fit your message, or at least you're in the right ballpark, and not just finding this random event and thinking, oh, but that's a nice location. How can I mold and bend my message or idea around to fit them? Then it just doesn't really fit that way. Yeah. And then once you've kind of got more aware of the kind of the timing and certain events that are around in the world and your area that may be relevant, then really focusing on, okay, within your message, what is that unique special source, and what is unique within that, and why is it that an idea worth sharing? Not about you. Without being harsh, no one really cares about you unless you're like a president, prime minister, or legitimately famous. Then maybe, but even then, we want to know what your unique idea worth sharing is. And I've heard so many different TEDx organizers repeat this in different variations. Do not lead to these TEDx organizers as, hey, I've got a best-selling book and I've got a podcast and check me out. Also,
so
on the back
everyone
end,
else. Yeah.
Also, I've got a reasonable idea. It's all about the idea. So lead with the idea. The other stuff, they do have computers. They will find out that you've done awesome stuff as well, and it's more legit if you do try and shove it in their face. So that would be the first thing. And then, that's all about securing it. And, then it comes to the application and, how to successfully apply yourself. You might get some people say, hey, I know how you can increase your chances like 200%. How many events have you applied to? 2? Well, apply to 20 or whatever. Yes, you can apply to more events, but I think it's more important to be more thoughtful and strategic and tactical in terms of putting quality applications in. And you might not have to do that many. That's been my experience and sort of people I've worked with, because it's clear you haven't done this scattergun approach. And it's like the relationships are important as well. So that plays into a part of it. And then only then kind of in the kind of the steps that only then worry about like your talk creation and then how to enhance and amplify your talk. And then again, if you still haven't secured it at that point, then okay, what can you do to make it happen? Even like some guerrilla maneuvers, like what was within you to, go that extra mile, not just sitting there, well, they haven't responded to my application. Well, what else could you do at this point? And then just doing that work and stay on it, because you've decided that you're going to get a TEDx. You're not maybe getting one, you're going to get one. So you might as well do a bit more work and make it happen now. And then only near then, that kind of like step 10 is completing the talk, and then you're ready to do it on the stage. But there's no point locking yourself away and creating this great TEDx talk that you haven't even secured it on a spot, because there's a long timeline of these things. The applications for events generally close anywhere from like 4 months to 8 months out. So, the current Corona situation, that has zero impact on the clients I'm working with now, because we were already looking for the end of the year and into 2021.
Yeah.
So ideally, them events would be going, but who knows? So now at the end of the day, I don't know when this goes out, but at the end of the day, the TEDx organizers are largely at home.
Yeah.
So again, it's and people
true.
say, now's not a good time, is it? And well, events being cancelled now, it wasn't a good time to be involved with them like before. But for the events of this doesn't, change what you need to do. And even if it did, that's the reality of the world. It may not fully go back to normal. Deal with what's in front of you, and just start working forwards. And I offer idea clarity calls every Thursday. Well, most Thursdays, we're fully booked this week. But the thing I like about that is, in a standalone sort of 20 minutes, that the feedback's that's really valuable, because even if, I wasn't digging deep into this arena, just verbalizing your potential ideas worth sharing to someone else is useful. It's useful to have that space, because you can't read the label of your own bottle. And I will have some insight and something that maybe you haven't thought of, or just, something that's useful in terms of sort of pushing you in the right direction. And so and hearing people's, unique ideas worth sharing is something that I really enjoy, and it just ties into everything I do.
I think that's really fascinating, and thanks for breaking that down, because it makes me appreciate TED even further with the level of competition, but like the people that are actually making it to the stage. Those talks genuinely are unique ideas and thoughts that these people have mastered over the years and have already proven themselves.
A question along those lines: how many people? So at a typical TEDx talk, you said they get like maybe 400 applications. How many make the cut? How many speak throughout the day of a TEDx talk?
Yeah, I mean, this is the first thing. So there is not a typical TEDx event. And this is the fascinating thing, because when I first started the podcast and going down that route, I thought, I hope this isn't going to be boring in terms of how many different answers can you get to certain questions. But like a podcast or podcasters, there's no one TEDx event that's the same. I know, I mean, getting boring and geeky, I've always learned like there's different levels. Like a level 1 TEDx event is it's like usually a first time event. They're only allowed 100 tickets. Then you've got like level 2 events, level 3 events. There's events that are like, some TEDx events are bigger than TED events almost. The one in Michigan was planned to be, they've been growing every year, was going to be in the stadium, like a 60,000 seat stadium this year.
Wow.
The Detroit Stadium. And that's a TEDx event. It's TEDx Detroit. And then there's TEDx Chicago, maybe 6,000. There's like TEDx, the local Alpena one this is my next one. That's one of the earlier years that I was going to be speaking at. Still, at the moment, it's still going ahead in July. This is my TEDx talk. And so they're all very different. And talking about all the steps as well, because some people take the approach, depending on how someone's vibe is, like, and that's why obviously Ted come and check me out a bit. Like anything, there's sound people, there's unscrupulous people out there, and so they want to check, what you're doing and stuff. And purely, if someone's interested in getting a TEDx event, or doing a TEDx talk. There's obviously with the TEDx, the Talk Accelerator podcast, that is really going to offer you some useful insight.
Yeah,
that's public knowledge, that's out there. And again, they might say, you're hacking it. Well, yeah, this is the point. But
why wouldn't you?
And it's weird, and like, but we wanted it so like as if people are getting like found, and I'm like, well, that's not what's happening generally. For the TED stage, which is something different as well. And the interesting distinction of, the general public, because TED is such a strong brand, doing a TED talk and doing a TEDx talk is a difference. But the general brand, you get washed with the same colors. So someone like who's like a president, prime minister, or Tony Robbins and stuff like that, or people who've been featured on the TED stage, you get put in the same bracket. It's much like if you've had an absolute legend on this podcast, and then I come on.
Stop talking about yourself like that.
No, I say you get rightly or wrongly, you get that credibility by association.
Yeah.
So with the TEDx event, they're also different. And I'll interview one TEDx organizer 1 week, and he'll be like, or she'll be like, yeah, I really don't like anyone applying from outside of my area because I want local. And this is the kind of the vibe has been pushed that it's definitely like local is the what they're pushing for with this TEDx kind of in the regions. And then multiple times I've had a TEDx organizer, oh, if someone's willing to fly or come from all the way over there, they must really want it. And I really appreciate that. And someone else is like, ugh, I can't, I tell them not to apply. So completely different.
Right.
And it's fascinating. And then, like I say, I'm sure there's going to be people associated with TED, which I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
Again, it's like, it comes back to, you can't make people like you or hate you. You just got to do your thing. I'm doing this with the right intention. I'm sure there's people associated with TED who'll be like, I'm not a fan of that he's putting this out there, but I am promoting TED, and TED, I promote them as a great thing.
Yeah.
And there's other people who are like, wow, I've had it. I'm so glad that you're kind of pulling back the veil on certain things and showing us that this is what the work that's involved, the reality. I'm not making it up, that if you want to get on that stage, and you can do that totally by yourself, or you can, like anything, you can get someone to help you, guide you, or, there's a whole variety of ways, but this is the game and what's out there. And this is how you potentially get on there.
So you remind me of a guy that you probably have heard of, and Matt does too. His name is also Adam, and he tends to ruin everything. And if you ever watch that show, Adam ruins everything.
I've watched it very briefly. Yeah.
But there's one about the Oscars, Academy Awards, and all these different big award shows. Been there's actually a lot of money behind it, and the awards that are being given out are not what you think they actually are, and they're actually because they've been there's been funded by all these groups and these people that vote, and it's it's not exactly what it's all shaped up to be. So it's just there's nothing wrong. It's just the way life goes sometimes.
Yeah, and the thing with TED and the TEDx talk specifically, and these are just my opinions, but the power in them is you cannot, because people are always saying to me, oh, can you guarantee me a TEDx? And I'm like, no, I wouldn't want to do that. And you should run away from that, because the power in TEDx, you can't buy a TEDx. I run an event, someone else can run an event that's like a TEDx style talk, and you can do it, that you can pay because you want that kind of exposure, but you have to earn these TEDx talks.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to do the work. So again, some people, you can do that by yourself, or some people can show you this is, more efficient with your time, because generally it's very rarely is it a priority on someone's list. And why a lot of people don't make it is because, they're doing business and they're like, I'm looking at TEDx's and I want to do some work. And then business comes in, because it's a voluntary thing, and they're not going to pay you. They're not going to pay expenses. And it's not like you don't want to be doing it for that reason. It's because you've got a unique idea worth sharing, and you want to get it out to a big audience. And it is a great platform. It's probably why you're doing, you might be on podcasts, or you might have written a book, and it's just another medium. And so, it's, I think
great.
That's the power in it as well. And, so I would, if anyone listens, because there are people out there, and I'm sure someone might even offer a guarantee, I'd be very wary at that. And I know TED would be pretty pissed if they found out there was guaranteeing, because something there then is corrupt. If you can technically guarantee them, then you've got an in where something is, amiss, or you're very confident, and you shouldn't guarantee it, because then the person's still got to do the work, because they got to get up on the stage and give that talk.
Yeah, that's right.
So I have sort of one last question around the TED topic, and then we should probably start wrapping up, just because I think we both have something coming up here pretty soon that we're gonna have to jump off for. But so when it comes to these TED Talks, have you seen any of your clients or people that you've interviewed leverage the fact that they did a TED Talk into other really cool stuff?
Oh my goodness. This is my favorite part of the interview. I ask it near the start of my interviews with them. Man, the variety of things. I'm literally going to just refer to the last interview I did, or went out this week, author Breyer. And this is his TEDx. I think it's been viewed 15,000 times.
That's it. Huh?
Okay.
That's a lot.
And in the big scale, some people say that, but he said, it's the people who've seen it. This is not my words. This is his words. This is this week's episode. So we're going to date this. So
it's all good.
Episode 31 of the Talk Accelerator podcast, Author Breyer. He literally says this is one minor thing, but he's become Tony Robbins' like good friend through his TEDx talk. That's why.
Wow. Like, there you go. You never know who's going to watch, man.
No, in 15,000, because someone saw it, and it's specifically in a way in education and like accelerated learning. Someone saw it who knew Tony and said, hey, you got to check this out. He watched it. Then he reached out to him. Then they meet up. They're buddies. I'm like, that's crazy. And then there's the amount of different things that have like, it's like a domino for a lot of people. And it's crazy, and it just opens doors. And for some people, I'm excited to interview someone coming up who says it hasn't done anything for her. That's the only person. Ooh. But my gut is she's done nothing with it, because it is just a tool. So she didn't think I'd want to interview her, and I said, I definitely do.
Yeah, crack her open. Figure it out.
I want to know what's going on there, because, you write a book, that's going to do zero if it just stays on your shelf and you don't tell anyone about it.
Well, I feel like some of the best things come out of, it's not like a direct correlation. It's like some kind of blurry way.
Yeah.
You met a person or some opportunity showed up.
And this is the TEDx, and I can trace loads of stuff, but from different people who've said it, it's fascinating that you would never guess. And that's one of my favorite questions. It's all so different. But I mean, there's loads of stuff in there. Like people have put like, huge amounts, whether it's financials, just credibility, and it just the things like a lot of people put it as it's the game changer. It's like the hammer. You've got to be in the game. Like you've got to be like a good speaker if you're trying to get. For some people, it's like they're trying to land a big speaking gig, and so the TEDx may open the door. So they're like, oh, brilliant. Let's have that conversation, or that puts you in a certain financial bracket as a speaker, but then you've got to like nail it in, as in it's either got to be a very good TEDx, or then you've got to back it up. So it does give you opportunities and open doors and get you to places that maybe you might have got there, and you just might got there a bit slower, or but there's some of the examples are huge. I mean, that was literally this week's episode.
I want to listen to some. That excites me.
Because that's the bit of the interview where it's quite it's 18-minute interviews. That's the bit where I ask the question and just sit back, because it's really
let it flow.
And I don't cut a lot of that stuff, because I'm like, wow, it's and stuff people come out with, random things like, literally saying a direct reason or thing I got from my TEDx is Tony Robbins is now my friend. I'm like, damn, he's not my friend. I didn't get that from mine.
What the heck? I touch everything.
Fair.
Yeah.
Does that mean when I get 15,000 views, Tony's going to be my friend? Because that would be awesome. But yeah, I don't.
It's okay. You're going to paddle across to Canada and be the first one to put that in the Guinness Book of World Records.
In these episodes as well, I've got, I think, 2-3 people in there have had like 5 to 6 million views of the TEDx.
Jesus.
And so in terms of what that's done for them or how they've done it. So it's, and then like I say, and then I've had someone who's maybe you have people have had huge outcomes and they might have technically lower views. So it's really important. And again, some people have really leveraged it and other people are kind of just say they've gone organic with, but most people are quite, they're aware of the power of it. And
I think so.
So they, but it is important to come from a point if you've got an idea worth sharing, and all the other stuff I look at, is it just a bonus?
Yeah.
It really is. And you can leverage that and you can talk openly about it, or you can pretend, oh no, I did it purely for the idea worth sharing. I don't want none of the benefits of around it. The benefits in terms of you're getting your message out to more people, and then you can help more people. So I think I just like to talk openly about this sort of stuff.
Thank you. No, it's similar to like a legacy thing with our podcast. We know that this is changing lives and it's going to live on for however long. We'll see how long podcasts live on. But I know they live on for quite some time. So ideally, it's going to affect a lot of lives, just like TEDx talks.
And I'm not one of these. I'm not a TEDx junkie in terms of doing it for that reason. I've done one TEDx talk, to clarify this. In 2018, I was asked to do it, invited, but I talked about that minority. But remember, I'd done a TEDx. The reason I got invited to do a TEDx again was because they'd seen that I'd done a TEDx, and this was literally so local, and it was a new event, and they were like, we need someone. So because I built up the platform, they were aware of me. And so that's why they invited me.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's like the chicken and the egg. I wouldn't have got invited unless I'd done the TEDx, number one. And number two, I turned it down because linked to that, you got to have that idea worth sharing. It was on the week of where my book launch came out of Awaken Your Alpha. So they said, have you got an idea worth sharing? And I said, yes, I've shared it.
Yeah, but I'm not going to share it again right now, though.
And I'm like, I knew I respected TEDx too much to like, I can knock something up. So we kind of compromised. They did the video because they have to have video, live speaker. They have a set format. And so best of both worlds, they used my video and then I come and introduced it for 5 minutes. So I didn't have to particularly prepare anything. And then it was only in 2020, in January, I decided, I've been sitting on this idea and concept around, fear and stuff that I've been really digging into for the last couple of years. And I got an idea, unique angle on it, an idea what I want to share. And so it took me about a month. I landed my TEDx talk for end of July, which is still at this point going ahead.
Knock on wood, man. Knock on wood.
So but I'm not worried. It get bumped potentially or done behind closed doors. Either one's good for me. And then I genuinely hope that's the last one I do, because one of the main reasons I'm doing a second legit one is because the TEDx in 2016 was the best TEDx I could do at that time, and that's like 4 years later. And having dug into this, I can't unsee what I have seen now and know what I know. And there's things I'm like, man, I need to tweak a few things. So I was right up to 18 minutes. This one will be 10 or 12 minutes. I already know that. And there's a lot of things I will just tweak and do a bit different. And then I'm out. I'm not going to be a TEDx junkie. That's it. I don't want to
just share the ideas instead. On the podcast.
Yeah,
and whatnot.
That's it.
That's cool, man. Dude, I think, I don't know, it's getting me excited. I know I want to dig into some of the stories. So the two podcasts, let's shout them out again. So Awaken Your Alpha and then Talk Accelerator. Spell that out though, I know it's...
So Talk Accelerator, so it's just Talk X and then Accelerate, CEL, and then Rater.
I know it's weird.
We'll link it up in the show notes for people listening too.
Talk Accelerator, how it sounds, and then AY Alpha. Awaken Your Alpha is just AY Alpha, like Awaken Your and then Alpha. ayalpha.com/book if you like a bit of a book, but it's on Amazon. And then that's where you can listen to the podcast, idea clarity calls if you want to speak about that. And that's it. Just connect across social media, LinkedIn and Instagram and Adam Lewis Walker. And if you do see, hear, or read anything of mine and you thought it was reasonable or better, ideally, that you leave a one-line written review anywhere. Just let me know. It was podcasters really makes a difference because I pretty much know all of them reviews. And someone's taken that 30 seconds to do that. I appreciate that.
Hey, anyone who's lasted this long with this interview or with this pod, I think, which is a great thing. I hope you have. Do that. Give Adam some love. Give us some love too. Why not? It's going to be a total of a minute instead of 30 seconds. So check out the two podcasts. We'll link everything up in the show notes. And dude, I think this has been great. And I know my mind is swelling with different things and ideas and rabbit holes. So we'll probably have a round two, I'm sure, because
whenever,
like
man.
There's a lot in here.
Whenever, like totally. This isn't clearly this. This is not work. And
not at all.
All of the stuff like we talked about, Awaken Your Alpha. If you're doing stuff and you've got ideas worth sharing, and you're doing stuff that you feel like you could just keep doing it, and it's not work, you're onto something there. Like lean into that. If you're doing something that it shouldn't be that bad, but you're like, your body, every bit of you is just like dragging, and you're just like don't want to be there, or you just literally have an allergic reaction to aspects and people. Listen to that too, and start referring to what we talked about in this episode, and start making some moves.
That's right. Awesome, man. Grab the book too, because I'm going to go get it, and I'm bummed I have not freaking read it. I'm going to be honest, but I'm getting it. All right, my man. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Well, when you read it, I want that review.
You will get it. You'll get it. You will get it.
Awesome. Cheers, man. Right, I'll see you guys later. So, I'm jumping out. Have you stopped recording, or are you recording it?
I'm going to stop recording right now.
Do you want to learn the hard skills necessary to support your favorite shows? Well, cool. Our friends Gina, Haley, and Mel created something called Podcast Production School. Now, it's an online course designed to help you master the skills and strategies needed to launch, manage, and grow podcasts, including things like audio editing, show notes creation, and promotions. So download their free podcast production or their launch checklist today at podcastproductionschool.com/go/flowchart. Again, that's podcastproductionschool.com/go/flowchart.
Thanks so much for tuning into that episode. I hope you dug it. I know Joe and I dug it. I actually kicked Joe out of the room. He's not here right now because I wanted to tell you about a tool that I really, really dig. We use it in our business. We recommend it all the time. It's called Easy Webinar, and it's a tool that lets you do live webinars, automated webinars, hybrid webinars, and, pretty much any other kind of webinar if there are other kinds of webinars. But anyway, this tool is kind of like your all-in-one, do-it-all tool for anything webinar related. It's Easy Webinar. It's put out by a dude named Casey Zeman. He's been on the podcast. If you haven't listened to that episode, it's a killer episode. He's a really smart dude, but his software is amazing. It does everything. It's, the title tells you exactly what it does. It's an easy webinar platform. And we use this in our business to run automated webinars all the time. We don't do a lot of live webinars these days. We like to do the kind of automated webinars where somebody can register and then they can either watch it like 15 minutes later or they can watch it the next day, but it's just kind of always running. And it's a system that helps us make autopilot sales off of our webinars. Super cool tool. If you haven't tried it yet, it's an amazing tool. And Casey is actually hooking you up. He said for listeners of Hustle and Flowchart, I can't believe he's doing this, but he said for listeners of the Hustle and Flowchart podcast, he's giving 25% off of the membership to use Easy Webinar. It's already super, super inexpensive for what it does and all the cool features it has, but he's hooking you up with 25% off because you're a listener of Hustle and Flowchart. Go to easywebinar.com/hustle. That's where you can get that 25% off discount. That's easywebinar.com/hustle. It's a awesome tool. You're going to dig it. So just go grab it. Check it out. easywebinar.com/hustle. See ya. No, not see ya. You'll hear me in the next show. I don't know how to close these things. Go get Easy Webinar. Talk to you later.
Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Hustle and Flowchart podcast. Before taking the time to listen, we want to give you something a little bit special. Every single episode that we do, we actually have somebody on our team take notes. We basically have a Cliff's Notes version of every episode where you can go and find all of the tips and tactics that they laid out, all of the resources that they laid out, all the good stuff from this episode. We actually have a nice simple notes version that you can find on our website. So go to evergreenprofits.com, find this episode that you just listened to, and give us your email address and we'll send you the notes. Thanks for listening.
Go get it.